For an entire year, every single night at exactly 11:58 p.m., the walls of Mason Hale's quiet little home on Alder Creek Lane began to tremble. Not from an earthquake, from bass. Bone rattling, window shaking, sleep destroying bass that poured out of the house next door like a nightclub had exploded in the middle of suburbia. And the worst part? It wasn't random. It was deliberate. Because the man blasting the music, a smug, sleeveless shirt wearing self proclaimed DJ named Blaze Dalton, knew exactly what he was doing. Every time Mason politely asked him to turn it down, Blaze would laugh in his face. The first time Mason knocked on the door, Blaze opened it with music screaming behind him and shouted, "Noise ordinance doesn't start till midnight, neighbor. You got 2 minutes. Enjoy them." Then he slammed the door. 11:59 p.m. The bass got louder. Mason worked at 6 a.m. every morning. For months he tried everything. Earplugs, white noise machines, sleeping in the guest room, even his car one desperate night. Nothing worked. But the real nightmare wasn't just Blaze, it was Karen Voss, the HOA president. Because Karen didn't find Blaze, she fined Mason. 3 citations for harassing a neighbor, 2 warnings for excessive complaint filings, and a $150 violation for creating neighborhood tension. Meanwhile, Blaze threw parties that shook the street like a festival. And Karen loved Blaze, called him a vibrant addition to the community. That's when Mason realized something chilling. This wasn't incompetence, it was protection. And what Karen didn't realize was that Mason had quietly started documenting every single night, dates, decibel readings, police call logs, and recordings that would soon turn Alder Creek Lane into the most humiliating HOA scandal the neighborhood had ever seen. But the night that finally broke Mason was the night Blaze's music accidentally exposed something far worse than noise, something that would destroy Blaze and bring Karen Voss down with him. For 312 nights, Mason Hale endured the same ritual. 11:58 p.m., the bass started. 11:59 p.m., the walls shook. 12 a.m., Blaze's house turned into a full-blown nightclub. At first, Mason thought it was just arrogance, but by month 6, he realized something strange. The parties weren't random. They happened almost every single night. The same cars, the same people. And music so loud, the windows across the street rattled like loose teeth. Mason kept documenting dates, times, decibel readings. At 12:17 a.m. one night, his sound meter hit 94 decibels inside his own bedroom. That's when he called the police again. Officer Trent arrived at 12:42 a.m. Blaze opened the door with a grin and music blasting behind him. "Noise complaint?" Blaze said. "It's a party. Relax." The officer stepped inside for barely 30 seconds before coming back out. Then something odd happened. The officer didn't warn Blaze. He warned Mason. "HOA says you've been filing excessive complaints," Trent said carefully. "You might want to handle this through them." The HOA. Karen Voss. Again. The next morning, Mason checked his mailbox. Another violation letter. Harassment of neighbor, $200 fine. But Karen made one mistake. She included a note, a smug little sentence that would eventually destroy her. Blaze Dalton has been cleared of all complaints by the HOA board. Cleared. After hundreds of noise complaints. That's when Mason stopped thinking like a tired neighbor and started thinking like an investigator, because the recordings he had been collecting, they didn't just capture music. They captured conversations, people talking, deals being made, arguments, and one recording from 1:14 a.m. that made Mason sit upright in bed. Because through the bass and laughter, someone clearly said Karen already took care of the HOA complaints. Suddenly, the noise problem didn't look like a party anymore. It looked like a protected operation, and Mason realized something terrifying. The music might not be the real problem. It might be the cover. The moment Mason heard that sentence in the recording, Karen already took care of the HOA complaints, something inside him snapped awake. This wasn't just a loud neighbor. This was a system. And if Karen Voss was protecting Blaze Dalton, Mason needed proof so airtight that even the HOA couldn't bury it. So he stopped knocking on doors and started watching. Every night after work, Mason parked his old sedan down the street where Blaze's driveway was clearly visible. The pattern repeated like clockwork. Cars rolled in around 10:30 p.m. Not neighbors, strangers. Expensive SUVs, dark-tinted sedans. People walked in carrying backpacks, coolers, even metal cases. Then the music started. Loud, violently loud, like it was designed to drown out everything else happening inside. Mason kept filming. Weeks passed. Then, one night, something different happened. At 1:03 a.m., the music suddenly cut off for 20 seconds, just long enough for Mason's recorder to capture a furious voice shouting from inside the house, "Tell Karen we paid her already." Silence. Then the bass came back, even louder. That was the moment Mason knew. This wasn't just noise, it was protection money. And Karen Voss, the HOA queen of Alder Creek Lane, wasn't stopping Blaze's chaos. She was benefiting from it. But Mason didn't rush to the police. Not yet. Instead, he did something far smarter. He waited for the one night Karen would never expect, the annual HOA neighborhood meeting. Because while Blaze thought the music kept everyone from hearing what happened inside his house, Mason had been quietly collecting something far more powerful than recordings, a full year of evidence. And in exactly 3 days, he was going to play it for the entire neighborhood, including Karen, including Blaze. What Mason didn't know yet was that the night of that meeting would end with police lights, federal investigators, and the single most humiliating HOA collapse Alder Creek Lane had ever seen. The Alder Creek HOA meeting started exactly the way Karen Voss liked it. Controlled, predictable. Karen sat at the front of the room wearing her usual pearl necklace and that smug HOA president smile, flipping through violation reports like a judge handing down sentences. Then she called the next item. Mason Hale. Repeated harassment complaints against neighbor Blaze Dalton. A few people in the room sighed. Karen smirked. "Mr. Hale," she said sweetly, "this will be your final warning before legal penalties." That's when Mason stood up slowly. But he wasn't holding complaint papers. He was holding a small speaker. "Before we talk about harassment," Mason said calmly, "I'd like the neighborhood to hear something." Karen rolled her eyes. "Make it quick." Mason pressed play. The room instantly filled with the pounding bass everyone on Alder Creek Lane had endured for a year. Karen folded her arms. "Is this supposed to prove something?" Mason didn't answer, because the bass faded and the recording changed. Voices. Clear voices. Blaze's voice. Then another voice shouted through the speakers, "Tell Karen we paid her already." The room went dead silent. Karen's face drained of color. Someone in the back whispered, "Did he just say Karen?" Mason hit play again. Another recording. More voices, more deals, more mentions of Karen. Then Mason calmly placed a thick binder on the table. 365 nights of recordings, he said, and copies of everything already sent to the county noise enforcement office. Right on cue, red and blue lights flashed through the meeting room windows. Police, and 2 county investigators walking straight toward Karen. Blaze Dalton's illegal party house was shut down that same night. And Karen Voss, the woman who fined everyone for everything, was escorted out of her own HOA meeting under investigation for corruption. Sometimes the loudest noise in a neighborhood is the truth finally being played back. If this story shocked you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments.